Imagine a government that holds half of the entire world's gold, yet somehow manages to go bankrupt 4 times in just 40 years. Imagine an empire so vast that the sun literally never sets on its territory, vanishing into a second-rate power in a single generation. Imagine a superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons, dissolving in just 900 days. Not because of a war, but because its economy simply stopped working. These sound like impossible scenarios. They sound like fiction, but history tells us they are not accidents. They are a pattern, a mathematical certainty that has destroyed every single superpower that dared to ignore it. Spain ignored it and lost everything. Britain ignored it and lost the world. The Soviet Union ignored it and ceased to exist. And right now, the United States isn't just approaching this pattern. We are deep inside it. We have already completed 5 of the 7 stages of imperial collapse. Most people are distracted by the politics, the arguments, and the noise. But the economic engine that powers the American dream is flashing red. This is a story of how superpowers die, why the math says we are next, and why nobody in charge is brave enough to admit it. Imperial collapse doesn't look like an explosion. At least, not at first. It doesn't start with an invasion or a lost war. It starts with a feeling of invincibility. It starts when a country becomes so powerful that it believes the basic laws of economics no longer apply to it. In 1590, Spain was the richest empire on earth. By 1650, it was a shell. In 1914, Britain ruled the largest empire in human history. By 1945, it was America's junior partner. In 1980, the Soviet Union was a terrifying global rival. By 1991, it didn't exist. 3 different empires. 3 different centuries. But if you look at the data, they all died the exact same way. They followed a specific sequence of 5 fatal decisions. It is a cycle. Most people think the US is different. We have the technology, we have the military, we have the dollar. But Spain had the silver. Britain had the pound. The Soviets had the tanks. The pattern doesn't care about your exceptionalism. It only cares about the math. And the math is screaming that the United States has already checked the first 5 boxers. You need to understand this because this isn't just history. This is about the value of the money in your bank account. It is about why your rent is so high. It is about why you work harder every year but feel like you are falling further behind. It is because the system is following a script that always ends in the same place. Let me show you exactly where we are in that script. Let's start with stage 1. Military overextension. This is the trap of power. In the late 1500s, King Philip II of Spain sat on the largest fortune in history. Spanish ships were bringing home 200 tons of silver every single year from the Americas. It was more money than anyone had ever seen. But Philip had a problem. He wanted to be the policeman of the world. He fought wars in the Netherlands, France, Italy, the Americas, and the Philippines. Simultaneously, he thought because he was rich, he could do everything. By 1580, Alf of Spain's entire revenue went to the military, and it still wasn't enough. Fast forward to Britain in 1914. They had commitments on 6 continents. They had to defend India, Africa, the Middle East, and the Pacific all at once. When war came, they had to choose. Save the economy or save the empire. They chose the empire. They won the war, but the cost bankrupted them forever. Now, look at the United States today. We currently maintain over 750 military bases in 80 different countries. We have active troops in 150 nations. We are committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and Israel. We are countering China in the Pacific and Russia in the East. Our annual military budget is $850 billion. That is more than the next 10 countries combined. We are paying to be the world's policeman, but the neighborhood has gotten too big for the budget. This is the definition of overextension. It drains the treasury and distracts from problems at home. Spain ignored it until they couldn't pay their soldiers. The Soviets ignored it until their economy imploded. We are ignoring it right now. We are stretched too thin, and strategically, we are in a trap. If 3 major conflicts break out at once, we simply cannot respond to everything. The math doesn't work. When an empire spends more on its military than it brings in from taxes, it has two choices. It can stop spending, or it can cheat. They always choose to cheat. This is stage 2. Currency. Debasement. In the 1600s, the Spanish crown couldn't pay its bills. So, they started recalling silver coins, melting them down, and mixing in copper. A coin that used to be pure silver became 50% copper, then 75%. The face value was the same, but the real value was gone. It was a hidden tax. The government stole the value of the money right out of the citizens' pockets, without them realizing it. Britain did the same thing. They abandoned the gold standard in 1931 because they had printed too many paper pounds to pay for World War I overnight. The pound lost 25% of its value. The United States isn't mixing copper into coins. We have a much more efficient method. We just press a button. In 1971, the US turned a dollar into a pure fiat currency, backed by nothing but faith. Since then, the dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power. But look at what happened recently. Since 2020, the US printed over $6 trillion. We increased the money supply by 40% in just 2 years. When you go to the grocery store and eggs cost 3 times what they used to. That isn't just supply chain issues. That is the history of imperial decline showing up in your shopping cart. It is the government diluting your wealth to pay for their debts. The mechanism is different digital zeros instead of copper, but the result is identical. The money in your pocket buys less every single year. This is why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The rich own assets that go up in price. The poor own cash that goes down in value. It is the oldest trick in the book, and we fell for it. Debasement leads directly to stage 3. The debt spiral. This is the point of no return. This is the moment when you are no longer borrowing to build roads or schools or factories. You are borrowing just to pay the interest on the money you already borrowed. Spain defaulted on its debt 4 times in 40 years. Each time, they promised reform. Each time, they went right back to borrowing. The United States is currently $36 trillion in debt. That number is so big, it sounds fake. It sounds like a made-up number. But here is the number that matters. Interest. As of this year, the US government spends more on interest payments than it does on the entire military. We are spending nearly $1 trillion a year just to service the debt. And because we run a deficit, we have to borrow that money too. Think about that. We are taking out new credit cards to pay the minimum monthly payments on the old credit cards. This is a mathematical death spiral. In peacetime, with a growing economy, we are running massive deficits. There is no plan to pay it back. There is no political will to stop spending. Just like the Spanish monarchy and the British Parliament before them, our leaders have decided to kick the can down the road. But the road is ending. You cannot borrow your way to prosperity any more than you can drink your way to sobriety. It works for a little while, and then the hangover kills you. Now, you might ask, if we have all this debt, why do we still feel rich? That brings us to stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. This is the most insidious stage because it feels like wealth, but it is actually rot. In the 1600s, Spain had so much silver flowing in that they stopped making things. Why grow food or build ships when you can just buy them from other countries? The Spanish nobility considered work beneath them. They became consumers, not producers. The wealth flowed through Spain, but it didn't stay there. It went to the countries that actually built things. Look at the US today. We have gutted our manufacturing base. We shipped it overseas because it was cheaper. We import $800 billion more in goods than we export every single year. We design the technology, but we don't build it. We finance the construction, but we don't pour the concrete. We have become an economy of finance, services, and consumption. We trade houses back and forth. We sue each other, and we serve each other coffee. But the actual physical capacity to produce the things we need to survive, that has been outsourced. Just like Spain, we are dependent on foreign supply chains for our medicine, our electronics, our steel, and even components for our military. If the trade routes stop, the shelves go empty. We saw a preview of this in 2020. The empire has forgotten how to build, and an empire that cannot build is an empire that cannot survive a crisis. When the economy hollows out and the currency loses value, society starts to fracture. This is stage 5, social decay. In the final years of the Soviet Union, nobody believed the government anymore. The system was visibly broken. Alcoholism skyrocketed. Life expectancy dropped. The social contract agreement that we are all in this together evaporated. In Spain, as the economy failed, the best minds left. They moved to places where hard work was actually rewarded. Does any of this sound familiar? Trust in institutions is at an all-time low. We can't agree on basic facts. Political polarization is so severe that half the country thinks the other half is an existential threat. We see rising crime, exploding homelessness, and a mental health crisis. The American dream. The idea that if you work hard, you'll get ahead feels like a lie to an entire generation. This isn't just politics. This is a symptom of a dying economic engine. When the pie stops growing, people start fighting over the crumbs. We have walked through the pattern: military overextension, currency debasement, debt spiral, loss of productivity, social decay. The United States has completed all 5. The Soviet Union made it to stage 5 before it collapsed. Britain lost its empire shortly after reaching this point. So, what comes next? Stage 6 is the loss of reserve currency status. That's when the world stops accepting your IOUs. We are seeing the cracks form right now. Countries are buying gold at record rates. They are trading in other currencies. They're building systems that don't rely on the dollar. Stage 7 is collapse. History is a circle. Empires rise. They become arrogant. They overspend. They debase their money. And Tafel, we are not special. We are just next. The system is flashing red. The only question left is, are you watching the distraction, or are you watching the pattern? This isn't about fear. It is about preparation. Because when the cycle turns, it turns fast. And the only people who survive are the ones who saw it coming. The answers aren't hiding in the future. They are written in the past. If you want to know what happens to your money next, don't look at the news. Look at history. This is the cycle of nations, and we are living through the most dangerous part of it. If you want to understand how to protect yourself when stage 6 hits, you need to pay attention now. Subscribe, because the world is changing, and I'm going to show you exactly where to look.